800, and I said churches, 800 Southern Baptist churches close every year. And that's a lot of them. We had two, maybe three in our own Lexington Baptist Association close their doors for the last time this year. That's not cool. But I constantly want to try to focus on us, what we can as individuals do in regards to all of that kind of thing. And I still believe it has to do with our personal relationship with Jesus, individually and collectively. And and I also wanted to be encouraging, and I was encouraged to know that I'd heard a little statistic this week, um, because we hear so much about the big churches, the mega churches as they call them now, the big networks of churches and everything they're doing. And it's a good possibility that most people, knowing Anna's age range and so forth, if they decide to set out and find a church that their kids will be comfortable in and that kind of thing, and a church that offers their family the most, they're most likely going to seek out one of those larger, more well funded churches. It's just a really strong possibility. But God's always working. God's got a purpose for his church. And God's not finished with your church, and he's not finished with the church across the street or the one up the street. And I get to hearing some of these statistics, and I figure out um, in America there's way more nominal sized churches than there are mega churches. There's lots and lots and lots. So let's think about it like this. Um, Everybody's heard of Starbucks, right? I mean, anybody in here not heard of Starbucks? What about McDonald's? So in America, they have figured out, McDonald's figured out ages ago, but they're figuring out, hey, we can create a whole bunch of small business like stores and reach more people. What about the Dollar General? I mean, everybody's building them in their backyard now, right? There's one almost on every road. So they figured this out. So I get to thinking along those lines. Do you know? Excuse me. There are more Southern. I'm not including all the Nazarenes and Methodist and Lutheran churches and so on, but there are more Southern Baptist churches in rural America and in the entirety, I can't even say it, the whole of America. There's more little 60 members or less Baptist churches than there are McDonald's and Starbucks put together. That's pretty cool, ain't it? So why aren't we making the impact that they are on culture? I mean, it is not much, not a big deal at all for somebody to turn their little steering wheel, whoop it through the Starbucks drive through, buy a $6 or $8 or $10 cup of muddy coffee. It's not a big deal because that's the thing to do, right? But anyway, I also heard one thing that really impressed me. Okay, so all the 500 member or more churches in North America, you take the lead pastor from each one of those churches, you can fit them on a France Air jumbo passenger jet. You can fit them all. of all the pastors that preach in 500 member or more church this morning. Take all the pastors that preach to 500 or less, nominally 60 people per on Sunday morning. You could pack the Kansas City Royals stadium with standing room only. So that tells me that you, little group of people, have more influence on America than you know you do. Or you have the potential to have more influence on America than you realize you do. But I think it all stems back to this pretty nifty verse in John chapter 13. Verse says, John chapter 13, verses 34 and 35. I told Noah that I was going to pop that up on him, and he said, well, just give me like 5 seconds or so to find it. I think he's faster than that. He said, it's Jesus saying this. He says, a new command I give you, love one another as I have loved you. So you must love one another. In 35 it says, by this everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. Josh, will you hand out those papers? I meant to ask you that while I was rattling. Or you can make Clayton do it. It don't matter to me. So Jesus, let's set that story up. Jesus he's on his march to the cross. And he's like up to the night before he's going to be crucified. And Jesus gets his disciples together, and he has the Passover feast meal with his disciples. And has everybody got one? We got a couple more if anybody needs one. He's having this feast with them, this meal, and this symbolic Lord Passover meal with them, where they break bread and they dip it in a bowl and eat it together, and they have the cup together and all these kind of things. And really amazing thing happens. He tells the guys, one of you all is going to betray me. And in spite of that, even after Satan had taken control of Judas, and in spite of that, Jesus gets up and basically takes off his outer garment, has a towel around his waist, and goes to each one of those guys, and he washes their feet. And Peter said, oh, no, well, you can't wash my feet. You can't do that. And Jesus said, if I can't wash your feet, buddy, you'll have no part of me. And Peter said, well, then wash all of me. And Jesus said, well, not all of you need all of your whole body washed, just your feet. You need more than that. Jesus by me. That's basically what he was saying. Your feet were so nasty, and he ends up telling them, a new command I give you, love one another as I've loved you. So you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. That word, everyone, the whole world, everyone will know that you're my disciples if you love one another. So that was I wanted that to kind of be our focus this morning. I had a pastor's small group on Friday morning, and and so I got together some of the stuff that we kind of discussed, and so we were in Ephesians chapter 5, starting with verse 21. So I believe that whenever we get our minds wrapped around and begin and continue for many of us. So I'm not saying all of you all aren't loving each other. That became evident Sunday morning how lovely you all were by what the response of two people who aren't from this state. They've been shut in for a long, long time, and when they finally get out, they go to the pizza shop next door. And the people in the pizza shop told them, hey, that's a really cool church. You should go. Somebody who's not even a member of this church invited those people to come to this church. Why? Because you all are loving. So I wanted to jot that down right quick, that I'm not saying you need to start because you never have, but we need to remind ourselves constantly that very thing, that we need to be loving. We need to be seen as loving each other. One thing that Miss Karen had noted was that we loved each other. It just blew her away how genuinely family-ish you all were, and that was a plus. So I'm gonna start with Ephesians 5:21 and see if this is a little out of my comfort zone here this morning. So in the way that I present this, so bear with me, and if nothing else, pay attention to the word. It says, starting with verse 21, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands as you do to the Lord. For the husbands is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is Savior. Now as the church submits to Christ, also wives should submit to their own husbands in everything. Let me pause there, because I want to revert back to verse 21. For any guys who think, yep, she needs to submit to me. It says submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. So that means you got to be submissive too, guys. Okay, so now as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything. Husbands, love your wives. Notice it don't say anything about wives loving husbands, but you should. Just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, and to present her to himself as a radiant church, without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. In the same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated their own body, but they feed and care for their body, just as Christ does the church. For we are members of his body. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. This is a profound mystery, but I am talking about Christ and the church. However, each one of you also must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. That flows both ways. So this morning we see all about love right there in this chapter, in this portion of this chapter. But he's drawing a picture for us. And he uses marriage as an example, but he says he's really talking about Christ and the church, right? And so we can flip flop that both ways. We can focus on marriage as being, hey, here's how Christ loved the church, but here's an example of how men should love their wives and wives should love their husbands. This marriage was created to demonstrate, just give us a physical picture of what it should look like in marriage. So this morning I wanted to talk about briefly as we can how do we love the church well? And I started to get a whiteboard up here where we could jot them down at and let you call them out. But I said, well, we're gonna make it easy for you this morning. Goal that I had has really worked me over, and I'm still dealing with the after effects from it 2 weeks after. So I got up here at the top. How do we love the church well? And we had already talked about Jesus commanded us to love one another, right? And he had said, by this one everyone will know you're my disciples. So how do we do that? How do we love each other well? And I gave some pointers, but I really would have loved to just ask y'all. But number one, commitment. I mean, if we're going to love our church family well, we got to be committed, right? I mean, that's what a marriage is, correct? In that passage we just read, it's demonstrated marriage is a commitment. It's a lifelong commitment. So we got to be committed. What else do we need? Y'all feel free to interject and call them out for me. What else do we need to do? How do we love the church? Sacrifice. What does that look like? Somebody want to say, what does sacrifice look like within the church as you have a love relationship with your church family? There you go. Giving you time, resources. Yeah. What about your abilities? Yeah, there's things you can do that other people can't. It's like in my world, there's I was just talking about this with I think with Kim. In the tool and die maker world, there's a whole room full of tool and die makers, but one may be really good at blacksmithy kind of work, which is nothing wrong with. They're really good at that rougher, beating on stuff kind of thing. But then there's some tool makers, die makers, that are really good at really fine, detailed, tiny work, real close tolerance. Both are deeply needed. They're both die makers, but they're both talented. Their abilities are a little bit different. So the same goes with us, right? Our abilities. We can sacrifice those abilities. What does sacrifice mean? Yeah, it's like, okay, I'm going to get rid of this in order to do that, right? Is I'm gonna kill something. Something's gonna go away. Something's gonna die, right? I'm gonna sacrifice my time. You mentioned that time. Instead of using this time on all of my selfish needs, I'm gonna kill it and I'm gonna give it on the altar of helping other people in my church body. That's just an example. Unity. That was the next word. Unity, right? What does that look like? Does anybody want to share it? Or share your thought on it? What does unity look like? Yeah. For a main purpose, right? A reason. There's a unity. Does that mean we all got to agree on every single little thing? Unity? Um, that does not. We don't have to all agree on the exact same approach or different matters. We don't have to agree on everything to be unified. But one thing we do agree on is Christ was crucified, right? Christ rose from the dead, and Christ is coming back to get us one day. And we agree that everybody on the planet needs Jesus because he said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. So we're unified in that belief, right? And we're unified when we get together. And we just did it a while ago. We all sang to Jesus in unity together. We were singing to Jesus together. And this a united thing. We're together. Okay, selfless, or maybe selflessness, or however you want to pronounce that. I think that goes along with sacrifice, don't y'all? It's unselfish. We're being unselfish. It's not about me anymore. And that's different than the world, right? That's way different when we become selfless. I think the next word is invest. And that is taking what I do have, seeing if I can give it and grow it. Whenever we invest money, that's what we're doing. We're placing it somewhere else. We're placing it in a place where it can reproduce, where it can expand, where it can grow. That's really important to invest, right? So I would challenge us as we go. If we're going to love each other, we've got to invest in each other. Not. I just want to give an example, so I'm not trying to pin a badge on me. But Wednesday night, Thursday evening, I had this lengthy conversation with Miss Karen. I invested a little time in her. It was just a small investment, and I was going to listen or talk to somebody anyway, so I might as well invest it in somebody. So what about provision? Does God provide? He does. He's a provider. Jehovah Jireh, I think was it. He's our provider. He provides for us. So if we're going to be Christ-like and we're going to love His church, then we're going to be providers as well for one another. There's going to be times where I may have a need and you guys are all going to fulfill that need. We're going to provide for one another. As a pastor, I have to provide not just as a dad would provide spiritual food. As a pastor shepherd, I have to provide spiritual food. You know, I've got to provide spiritual food. So, the Bible says for us to go make disciples, right? It says, go therefore, make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. It says that, right? Was he just saying that to pastors? He was saying that to everyone. So, if I'm going to love the church the way that Christ loved the church, then I've got to be a provider spiritually. So on some level, as I learn, I've got to share it with somebody. I've got to provide that spiritual food for somebody. That's not an option, whether I'm a pastor or a lay member. I'm still a provider. I have to do that. So I have to be engaged, correct? I mean, one thing that I keep hearing out of my mentors over and over is you need to walk amongst the people. You need to really walk amongst them. You need to live amongst them. You need to make contact with them. I need to engage you all, correct? Somehow I need to be engaging. Whenever you're around the dinner table with your family, and I trust many of you still do that, and if you don't, create a habit. It's good. But you engage with the people around this meal table with you, right? Whether it's your family or wherever you're eating, you're going to engage. Whenever you're around inside your home, you engage with one another. At least I trust you do. That's what we have to do as a church. We have to be engaging with each other. Now, the next word is discipline. And one of the pastors in our little small group the other day went off talking about, I think the church just don't do that enough nowadays. But what they're thinking about is the spanking, the correcting discipline. But I believe that discipline has to do with teaching what is correct already. Sure, there's a consequence to bring in with the discipline aspect. But that's not the whole batch. Discipline ain't just beating your kid. Disciplining your kid is teaching them to do the right thing. And then maybe correcting them or giving them some consequence when they intentionally do the wrong thing. But discipline is more teaching them the right thing. So we need to help each other become disciplined, right? In the Word, we need to be encouraging one another. We need to be holding one another accountable to the Word. And that might be something simple as, hey, Wendy, how's your Bible reading going this week? I ain't trying to put you on the spot, but really, it's just loving each other enough to be sure that our church family's taking in the right food. Instead, if my kid eating up my Cheetos every single day, then I'm going to have to say something to my kid about their diet, because I love her. So, raising up, leaving a legacy, raising up other people. Go make disciples. Now, what does a disciple do but make disciples, right? So I need to leave a legacy within my church. What kind of legacy are you leaving with your church family? It's just something between you and God. Just think about it. Your legacy. What are you doing to leave legacy? Something for the next church generation to pass on. It all goes back to all of that above. Are we engaging? Are we teaching, living, learning discipline? Are we being disciplined? Are we being selfless? Over the years, I've known a few people in church that were just totally selfless. They gave and they gave and they gave and they gave and they gave some more right up to the end of their life. And they gave out of their own poverty. They gave anyway, but they left a legacy by doing it. Y'all follow me? So that's how we love. That's just some ideas. Anybody else got any other ideas about how we could love the church well? The next question is, how do we love our family well? If you'll notice, that list goes down to raising up, leaving legacy. Same goes for your own family. How did Christ love the church? Jesus told husbands, love your wives like Christ loved the church, right? We just read that. So how do you love your family well? If we go by what Christ did for the church, it's the same thing. Jesus was committed to it. He didn't back out halfway through it. He didn't say, yeah, that Perry, he's gonna be a heathen. He ain't worth my blood. I'm going back to the throne now. He didn't do any of that. He was committed right up to the cross, right up to the grave. He was committed to it. And he's still committed that he's still gonna do what he said he was gonna do, and he's gonna come back. So if I'm going to love my family well, I'm going to love my family in a committed kind of way. It's going to be no backing up. There's not going to be any change. So I'm going to be sacrificial for my family. I'm going to give my time. I can think of 1,000,005 things I would rather do than go to work every day. That will be a whole lot more funner. But I'm committed to my family all the way. Until I can't breathe anymore, I'm committed to sacrificing my time for my family. I'm committed to unity. Whenever we had our home built, the model that we looked at had a big open area, and the dining room was open from open to the living area and the kitchen. And I said, you know what, my dad had one value, and that was that we were all going to get around the supper table every night and every chance we got, and we were going to get together. So I'm going to do that too, but I had that walled up so that we couldn't see the TV and all that. It would just be one confined space where we can get together as a family, get to know each other. So that unity had to happen. So this is kind of a good example. We get together, no distractions, nothing else outside. I trust y'all ain't playing with your phones and looking at Facebook. We get together as a church family, away from all of the distractions. So we can do that at home as well, right? Selfless. Every other member of your household should be as important as yourself. And it says to the husband, you know, you love your wife. It's like loving your own body. I mean, you take care of your own body, right? You need to love your wife that way. That goes for all family members. We should do that. We should invest in our family members. It should be, your family needs to be an investment, no matter what stage you are in your family. I know many of us have adult children now. I'm still trying to invest in them the best way I can. We invest. We provide for one another. Husbands should provide for their families. God called you to that. But families can provide for each other as well. In encouragement, in joy and happiness and all those kind of things. There's ways we can provide for one another. And one really important one there is just like with the church, we can be engaged with our family. I watch it now. I watch it a lot. People and their engagement with each other. And I think these things really do cut into that engagement a lot. I see families engaging on Facebook more than they do in person. It's kind of sad. I see a lot of people. This one kind of, I don't know. Maybe some of you all have done it. I don't mean to be insulting, but your loved one that's dead and gone home, they're dead and gone home. They aren't reading Facebook. I'm just saying. Y'all know what, do I need to expand on that a little bit? So put that down, quit talking to your dead relatives, and start talking to the ones you got alive. I'm just saying. They waiting on you. You'll get to see them one day. But when you get there, I'm just warning you, you're going to be so focused on Jesus, they ain't going to matter that much. You know what I'm saying? He's glorious, he's big, he's God. You're going to want to focus on him. And it's going to be cool that person who used to be your dad is there that's going to be way cool, but that ain't who you going to want to see. I'm telling you. So anyway, I didn't mean to chase that rabbit. Be engaged. Be engaged with the people that God's given you. I hear it all the time. Pastor, start praising God and loving the church you have, not the church you wish you had. And the same goes for us and our families. Let's start praising God, being engaged with the family, being thankful for the family we have, not the one we wish we had. Okay, provide. We got to provide. I already did that one. Discipline. Discipline goes in family too. We teach each other. Husbands, dads, moms, we got to teach our kids to do the right thing. We got to teach them. If we love them, we got to teach them. That's hot. Don't touch it. And then we've got to raise them up. I remember Daddy used to say, yeah, that boy there, he wasn't raised up, he was yanked up. We got to intentionally raise our children. We got to intentionally raise up people that have our values. Now, these guys I was meeting with, they added quality time. I believe that's investment, not the same thing. Listening. Listen. Y'all remember that? Listen, Linda. Listen. Okay, I'm going to just say, it's really hard for guys to do this with their wives. When the wife is talking, I start calculating how can I fix that? How can I make that better? And it's practice, but you got to intentionally shut that off and listen. Just listen. Be engaged. Listen. Work on being a good listener. When you're a good listener, you'll be a good lover. You'll be that person that loves well. That goes for your family. That goes for your church. Be present. Be in the room. Be in the room. Not 1.5 million miles away. Again, refer back to Facebook. Put it down. Be engaged. Be present. Be there. But show up. Show up for your family. I know some guys who, they come home, they get off their work clothes, they get them a shower, they get on some fancier clothes, smellier, better clothes, and they go hop in their fancy vehicle and they leave for the evening. And then they come back home in time to get into bed so they can get up and go to work, so they can get up and do it all over again. You got to be present. You got to be there. And you cannot be there and still be in the room. Be present. Prioritize what's most important. Set up some values for your family. Set up some values that you have with church. How am I going to be with my church? Am I going to be kind? Am I going to be present? That's a good value to have, to be present. Prioritize what's most important in your life. And the same, if you notice, applies for your church family. It applies to your family. God created it that way so we would see an example of what church need to be, what our relationship with Him needs to be. So I went and I took Ephesians 5:21, and I omitted everything. You'll see at the bottom of the paper, one another out of reverence for Christ. Notice this, in either category, whether it's with your church or with your family, and this is the punchline, y'all, commit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Sacrifice for one another out of reverence for Christ. Be unified together with one another out of reverence for Christ. Y'all see how that's going? Invest in other people out of reverence for Christ. What does reverence mean? It means we revere Him, correct? We revere Christ. So every time that I am kind to Josh, I'm doing it because I revere Christ. You know, let's adopt that set of values into our church. And back around to the beginning. If if Starbucks can make an influence on the culture of America with a stinky, overcooked coffee bean, how can it be that we do not have a larger impact on America by just adopting some of these very things out of Scripture? Just adopt these into our very lives as a church family, as families. When we begin to do this, when we really pour it on thick, and we find that old lady at the gas pump who has arthritis, and we pump her gas for her. When we're kind to somebody, just because they were created in God's image, no matter what they look like, smell, taste, or do, doesn't matter. When we start doing that kind of stuff because of that kind of values, it's gonna have an impact in our culture. We don't have to be good at politics. We don't have to be the smartest person on the planet. When you start loving people that way, and people start seeing a church love each other that way, it's going to change the world. It's going to do it. There's no doubt about it. So I've said enough, and I appreciate y'all listening. I would like for you to take that list home. Think about it. Pray over that thing. Lord, which one of these things do I need to work on in my family, in my life? Which one of these things do I need to do with my church? Is it the be present? Is it the invest? Lord, what do I need to do? Because I want to revere you. I would challenge you to think about that. You may feel like I'm just one person and I can't make a difference in the whole world. But as we saw earlier, statistics show there's a whole lot more tinies than there are humongous. I think we can. We can change the world.